And we are recording. Welcome everybody. This is the monthly meeting for the vSphere Cloud Provider. Today is June 5th, 2019. And we do have a light agenda for today. We're going to kick off as usual with the current status. I have a couple of things, so if folks are on the call can add their name to the attendee list. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. Actually, let me share my screen so we can do it like that. Share. And here. All right. So we're getting closer and closer to what we define as a milestone for what we call V1 Alpha 2, so 0.2.0 for CCM. As everybody knows, we successfully split CCM and CSI into discrete repos, and now we're getting to a point where we have enough changes and enough features in the CCM to warrant the new release. So we decided to wait until this monthly call to kind of like sum up the situation. We had a research spike for affinity scheduling. This was based on the work that Anthony did a while back on the affinity scheduling for ESX. So make sure that you're able to reflect the pods and the nodes in regards to the actual ESX hosts that are running on. David, I see you made some comments in the issue. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. So I kind of placed this issue, this research on the back burner because there was a renewed talk in the Cloud Provider SIG group to basically expand like the zones and regions support. And so hopefully in that work, what the idea is if, we can influence like what that enhancement could entail, that it could potentially bite off this node affinity scheduling, right? Basically provide the hooks into vSphere infrastructure and APIs, right? To actually get that affinity and anti-affinity scheduling in there. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I did research what's there, and there is another method of doing it, but if we can, do it in line with this feature that's going to be, presented in line in, upstream Kubernetes, then I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, makes sense. This was supposed to be like, ideally, we wanted to see if we could like implement the same work that was done by Anthony into the CCM code, but I think it's okay if we just punt on that and we just defer that to the next release. So I'm gonna move that to the next milestone.
Yeah, and if what's discussed in the Cloud Provider SIG, if they decide not to bite off like certain aspects of what we're interested in, then we can always revisit this, right, and continue on. Right?
Yeah, we'll keep the issue open, just kind of like put back into the backlog. The other thing we had was actually the only outstanding item that we have on our V1 Alpha 2 milestone. Let me just pull up the list here. Yeah, we have one outstanding item, which is the documentation. So I know that this is being worked on by Andrew Sekim and Miles, I think. Can we get a status update on that? I see there is I found a PR in the repo that was providing documentation for the original in-tree cloud provider. Miles, I don't know if you made any changes to this and it's reflecting the new content that was supposed to be landing as part of the issue that we opened.
Right. Yeah. So the stuff that was merged in is all in-tree specific VCP documentation, right? So that only covers in-tree. 181 is the master one that Andrew and I are working on that covers out of tree, so CCM and CSI. I pushed a big update to our branch of that today, or rather I forked his and then it'll merge in. But as far as content goes, yeah, that's all it looks like there. But if we go into his repo, I have a PR with a bunch of stuff open in his fork of it as well. So there's an end-to-end install guide in there now as well. There's all of the description of the different Kubernetes components, all of the VMware components, all that kind of stuff is done. So there is some other stuff that needs added in and polished off, like some of the tutorials, add-ons about networking and storage, that kind of thing. But it is well underway at this stage. I think Andrew wants to cut something off for 115, like an MVP, and we'll ship it with that.
Yeah, sounds good actually. I was thinking of like figuring out if we're basically ready to cut the 020 for the CCM. I just want to make sure that we have supporting documentation when we do the release, which is it's stable enough that people can start adopting it, but documentation is always a big hurdle for people trying out out of tree components for the first time.
Right.
So if we can get to like at least get like you said an MVP of the documentation, at least with some like end-to-end flows. Even if
Yes.
it's just basic, it's fine. As long as we have something to point people to.
Yeah. So what we've got like right now today is an end-to-end guide for VCP using kubeadm, and Andrew is working on the CCM version of that. So I pushed mine first. I assume he's going to use that as a template, and then he'll go through the installation of CCM, which is actually easier than VCP anyway. So
Okay, so looks like we're in agreement. So once we have that in place and we merge 181, we will cut 020 release. So hopefully by the time we get to the next meeting, we're going to have 020 released.
do we have a target date for that, or is it sort of end of month?
Well, we have this meeting every first week of every month. So we have the next one is going to be July 3rd. Yes, July 3rd. So I will put it here, current release by July 3rd. Pending merge of 181.
Cool.
All right.
I'll
Cool.
let Andrew know that that's our goal.
Awesome. I see there is a lot of information here in CSI. Was that you, David?
Yeah, that was me.
You want to give us an update on that? I've lost track of that.
Yeah, sure. No, so just to let everyone know that we did do a cut of CSI, the vSphere CSI driver. So it's 020. It was done just before KubeCon. So it's out, available. Go ahead and take a look at it. And then just as like community FYI kind of a thing, the KubeCon SIG-VMware intro session with cover CSI was the videos posted. I grabbed the link from Steve, which he provided in the Kubernetes VMware SIG channel. And then the demo that I just showed at KubeCon, that's contained within that first the SIG VMware session there. I created my own separate recording, which is effectively I was going to use as a backup in case the internet was really horrible there. So it's a condensed version of that demo that we did at that session. And then just as an FYI, in that 2.0 release, there was additional enhancements for Kubernetes node failures. So just as, kind of just a public service announcement that between the last release and this release, instead of certain components that are getting installed like on worker nodes, you'll see them get installed on the master nodes. So it's mainly to handle certain node failures and cases where, the attacher, the provisioner, and the controller are on the master nodes. And so if a worker node goes down, those components are unaffected, because typically the master nodes are going to be more protected in like an HA type situation compared to worker nodes. So that's pretty much the gist of what's there.
Awesome. Great. So hopefully we're going to have, both releases done before end of June. So we're going to have, a decent, package so people can try out, out of tree components and start ditching the in-tray stuff. All right. I don't think we have anything for related to CapV cluster API today specifically for vSphere Cloud Provider. We're going to have, surely we're going to start consuming the CCM, the CSI plugin for vSphere with CapV, which is a cluster API provider for vSphere. But we don't have any action items at the moment, so just skip that part for today. We're probably going to have more insight once we have the cluster API provider vSphere group is working on a refactoring of CapV, and it's gonna change. I would say it's going to impact and change a lot in the current CapV flow. So we're going to have probably is going to not impact directly the CCM work and CSI work, but more like the way we're going to consume CCM and CSI is going to change. Grooming the backlog. I don't think we have anything to groom today, since the only thing really that was left was the documentation. So I think right now everything is in Next. So I guess by the next time we have this meeting, we're going to start grooming for 116, and we're probably going to have to start picking some of the issues that are currently on set on the next milestone. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, just wondering if anyone has heard anything on SIG storage or otherwise to do with shutdown of nodes not triggering unmount events or detach events on volumes.
The one thing I know is that it's a hot topic right now, and there's been several offline discussions on that. I'm not sure if we have anyone working on that at this moment, but it's definitely something that has been scoped to. I would say that not has been scoped, but more like people clearly want a resolution for that because it's impacting more and more people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a problem that is being attended to. I'm not sure if there's a resolution path right now, but
no, I know it's not.
Where I think Google brought it up at KubeCon Europe.
Yep.
And it resulted in a whole bunch of VMware and a handful of Google people having a face-to-face there. Nothing got resolved, but we agreed to marshal the resources to investigate it. I think Yassine and Christian had some ideas as to what might be going on, but I don't think it's at the stage where we have a solution at this time. And part of this seemed to be an element of code within Kubernetes itself, and whether it was emitting the proper signals, and even if it was, whether we were paying attention to it. But there is work underway.
So from what I understood and from the testing that we've done internally, this is not just an us problem. This is an everyone problem. And the way that we have found that sudo resolves it is if you have a node that gets shut down or dies for whatever reason, you have to delete it from the cluster using Kate's node delete. Then the events get emitted correctly. So then you get the detach event, and then they'll be able to be rescheduled and remounted on other nodes. But you have to remove the node from the cluster entirely. So it must be a core Kate's thing.
Yeah, the only thing is, I think there were some, I have never done a deep dive to fully understand it myself, but I was getting the impression that maybe this doesn't occur on GCE, but like many things in Kubernetes, it could be that the architecture assumed something that was too GCE specific.
Or they just haven't had failures of that type yet.
That could be.
I guess that's just speculation. I know for a fact that it's not just a problem that we have with the vSphere provider. It's definitely something that happens in Kubernetes. I don't know the details yet. I know Yassine started looking into that, but it came from a different angle when he was looking at it. So it's definitely a problem that has been popping up randomly in various places, and I think we had like more people having the problem than other providers or other situations. So for us, for the VMware providers, it's been kind of like more prominent as a problem. So we definitely want to fix it, but it's not like just a fix that we can do ourselves. We need to push it into KK first, and then trickle it down into our providers. Right?
When we get to the bottom of it, too, I imagine a potential item for discussion is going to be where this fix goes. Obviously, the new replacement CSI driver will definitely have it, but we'd have to make a decision as to whether we backfill it into the existing alpha CSI and the legacy entry.
I think the code for this goes in KK, so it doesn't really matter what CSI or VCP you're using. It's just going to be in core. So I think we would have to wait for minor cuts of Kate's before we can do anything about it, really.
Yeah, and I don't think, my impression, because Saad of Google was talking about this too, the chair of the storage SIG, and I know just barely enough to be dangerous, I think, but the talk I recollect was that there was some signal indicating this node went down that went to the cloud provider with perhaps timeouts that were very unattractive, meaning 30 minutes, something like that. But it was then up to the cloud provider to manage to get this signal to the storage solution in order to make it workable.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I was just curious if anyone had heard any developments on that, but I'll have a chat with Yassine and see where we're at.
Cool. Anything else? Otherwise, we can get 9-10 minutes back. And once, twice. All right.
Bye.
Have a Wednesday, everybody.
Later.